He told his parents he was fine. 5 days later, his car was found ablaze in a Canadian car wash. 10 days after that, his bullet-riddled body lay face down in a gravel pit so remote it had no name. All that remained was the man he'd trusted enough to let into his Jetta, and who vanished into the night without a trace. This is the brutal story of Philip Fraser's final drive. A single act of compassion, a one-way ticket to murder, and a killer who stole not just a life, but an identity. Philip Fraser was 23 years old, the son of two well-known physicians from Anchorage, Alaska. He was quiet, intelligent, and kind, a gifted violinist and a thoughtful soul. He had a soft-spoken nature and a curious mind. After studying at Evergreen State College in Washington, Philip decided to pursue a career in medicine. In the summer of 1988, he packed his black 1983 Volkswagen Jetta and began the long drive from Alaska to British Columbia, with the goal of reaching Olympia, Washington. He carried with him a few essentials: camping gear, clothing, and 2 legally owned handguns. Philip was cautious, but adventurous. He wasn't afraid to travel alone. On June 14th, he called his parents from Tok, Alaska. His car was giving him some trouble, but nothing he couldn't handle. He sounded calm, grounded. That was the last time his family would ever hear from him. 2 days later, Philip crossed the border into Canada. At the Canadian Customs Station, he dutifully declared his firearms, which were held by authorities until he could return. His papers were in order. Everything seemed normal. Further south, along the Cassiar Highway, Philip stopped at the 40-Mile Flat Cafe, a small roadside diner nestled in the wilderness. Inside the cafe was another traveler, a man who stood out for all the wrong reasons. He was dirty, disheveled, twitchy. Several witnesses later described him as having poor hygiene, unkempt hair, and a jittery demeanor. He made them uncomfortable. So uncomfortable that the cafe owner refused to leave her daughter alone with him. That man, a hitchhiker, was stranded and looking for a ride. And Philip, perhaps driven by compassion or a sense of obligation, offered him one. It was a moment that would change everything. That same evening, hundreds of miles down the road near Kitwanga, British Columbia, a couple named Eddie and Pauline Olson picked up a man walking along the highway. He told them he was the son of doctors from Alaska, traveling to Washington to study medicine. He even had a car, a black Jetta, he said, and tried to sell it to them for $2,000. The Olsons found his story suspicious, but gave him the benefit of the doubt. He stayed the night in their home, then vanished the next morning. Soon after, fire crews responded to a car fire in Prince George. A vehicle had been set ablaze inside a car wash bay. The fire was intense, and by the time it was extinguished, the car was a smoldering ruin. Police traced the charred remains and determined it was Philip Fraser's black Jetta. The driver was nowhere to be found. There was no sign of Philip. Then came the worst news. On July 27, 1988, over a month after Philip was last seen, a tourist driving along Highway 37A near Stewart, British Columbia, discovered a body at a remote gravel turnout. It was badly decomposed, face down, with multiple gunshot wounds. Dental records confirmed it was Philip. He had been executed and dumped like trash in the middle of nowhere. Investigators with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police were now facing a murder with almost no physical evidence. But there was one lead: the hitchhiker. Witnesses placed him in multiple locations along Philip's route. They remembered his appearance. Caucasian, in his mid to late 20s. Overweight, with stringy brown hair and poor hygiene. He bit his nails obsessively and gave off an unsettling vibe. The Olsons described him clearly, and so did the cafe owner and her daughter. He was the last person known to have been with Philip Fraser. The RCMP issued composite sketches. Media outlets aired the story. Tips came in from across the US and Canada, but no one could identify the man. It was as if he had disappeared without a trace. There's evidence to suggest the killer may have crossed back into the US using Philip's stolen ID. His passport, checkbook, and other personal documents were never recovered. If that's true, he may have assumed Philip's identity, at least temporarily. Despite the release of the suspect's sketch and appeals on national television, including an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, no arrests were ever made. No one stepped forward. No one claimed to know the man who may have committed the murder. Over time, the case grew cold. But the pain did not. Philip's parents, Robert and Shirley Fraser, never stopped seeking answers. They lost a son, a gifted, gentle young man who wanted to help people, who had so much more to give the world. Why did he stop for that hitchhiker? Was he just trying to do the right thing? Did the man take advantage of Philip's kindness and end his life over a car or a twisted impulse? The wilderness along the Cassiar Highway still stretches endlessly. Trees sway in silence. Wildlife pass by without knowing the history of the blood spilled nearby. But for those who remember Philip Fraser, the questions remain. Who was the hitchhiker? Where is he now? Did he kill again? And why has no one ever come forward? The truth is still out there, buried under decades of silence and shadow. Justice for Philip Fraser is long overdue.